Greetings, family. Welcome to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started with today's segment, I want to remind you, if you have not already added yourself to my Telegram, that's the best way to stay connected outside of YouTube. There, anytime I post a video on YouTube or another platform, I will post the link inside of that chat. It's also the best way to contact me if you would like to. In addition, if you would like to support this channel, you could do so two ways. You could support on CashApp, or also you could add yourself to my Patreon. There I post a weekly exclusive just for you. I want to talk about a story that is very disturbing on multiple levels. I think the most disturbing aspect to me personally, though, is that you have so many people who have put out themselves as being followers of Yahusha, followers of the son of Elohim, followers of Yah. And those same people, many of whom call themselves Christians, are supporting what by most standards and measurements and objective reasoning is a sacrifice to a false deity. And we can say 100% that they're supporting a sacrifice to a false deity because we know, according to the gospel, that the need for sacrifices ended after the final sacrifice, Yahushua HaMashiach, the Lamb of Elohim. After he was sacrificed, that ended the need for sacrifices. So if there's a sacrifice to a deity, it's not being done to Yah. And so if it's not being done to Yah, who is it being done to? This is all being done in the name of support for Israel, a movement that has captured so much of evangelical Christianity. People thinking that they are going to allow a Zionist Israel to be the measurement of their devotion to Yah, their devotion to Yahusha, how much they can support this Zionist message, the Zionist proposition, the conquering of Israel over not just the region, but later over the world. So because of this, they've been willing to put aside many of the things that they would say that they believe in order to support a movement that is antichrist. So I want you to look at this image right here. Believe it or not, this is an altar that is being built in Israel as we speak. And on this altar will be sacrificed, I believe it's 9 red heifers that have been chosen. These red heifers are a necessity in order for, according to Jewish people, it's a necessity in order to usher in the building of the final temple, and then essentially usher in the Jewish Messiah. Now, you might say, well, we have a Messiah, right? Yahushua HaMashiach. So who is this Jewish Messiah that they're ushering in? Well, obviously, the Jewish Messiah, whoever they're trying to anoint, would not be the anointed one. It would be an antichrist. It would be an anti-anointed one because it would be someone who is not Yahusha, right? Yet Christians are signing up to support this move, thinking there's no consequences to it. In fact, I want to read a scripture because this is literally an example of the strong delusion. 2 Thessalonians 2 says, "For this reason, Yah will send upon them a deluding influence so that they will believe what is false, in order that they may all be judged who did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in wickedness." Now, you know that these people are following a deluded influence because it doesn't take much to figure out and put 2 and 2 together that the things that are happening inside of Israel is being done to trigger an end-time catastrophe. It's being done to provoke something that's going to literally be the end or the beginning of the end. And yet so many people are willing to support it because, again, they have been lied to, and they have been convinced of this idea that the people who are in Israel are the true Hebrews of the Bible, and that this is a return that Yah has ordained. So much proof that that is not the case. We're not getting into that in this video. In this video, though, you should really think about the fact that these same people who supposedly are so zealous for Yah that they would send red heifers all the way across the ocean, across the seas, to a land that is a war territory, right? As of now, and has been for a long time. They would do this all because they believe inside of the idea that these are the chosen people, a strong delusion, a deluding influence over the minds of people. So we're going to read through this article. A massive altar for red heifer sacrifices constructed in Israel. Since the time of Moses Moses, only 9 red heifers have been sacrificed. Now a massive altar for the 10th red heifer sacrifice has been built in Israel, and there is a tremendous amount of speculation that it could happen soon. In September of 2022, 5 red heifers were flown from Texas to the land of Israel. Since that time, one of them has been disqualified, but the other 4 continue to be candidates for a red heifer sacrifice. As I discussed last week, there was a practice run of the purity ceremony in 2023, but an official ceremony must be conducted before the heifers get too old to be used for such a sacrifice. And understand, every time that I say ceremony, the correct term is ritual. They're doing a ritual, a copycat ritual of the original sanctification of the temple, of Yah's temple. They're doing a copycat. So it says, according to CBS News, a massive altar has been constructed. I absolutely was floored when I saw it. According to those working on the project, a ceremony of the red heifers needs to be performed on a Mount of Olives and in a place that would look directly into where the temple stood. The land directly east of the Temple Mount, purchased 12 years ago, meets both of those standards. Rabbi Yitzchak Mamo owns the land on the Mount of Olives. Mamo is with the Uvni Jerusalem, a group that preserves Israel's history and works to educate future generations. Concerning the specifics of the land, he told CBS News, it had to be exactly at the front of the place that the priests that had made this ceremony can see the Holy of Holy place. But the clock is ticking. If the heifers get too old, they will no longer qualify. During a recent public appearance, Mamo explained that we're very close to the 3rd year of these cows. Recently, there's been a lot of buzz that we could actually see a red heifer sacrifice very soon. Last month, All Israel News reported that the Temple Institute wanted to conduct a sacrifice before Passover 2024. That's within the next few weeks, people. This year, the Jewish people will celebrate Passover on April 22nd. That is about a month away. So let's think about how profound this is. This is happening very soon, according to what they're trying to do. They're trying to do a sacrifice, an animal sacrifice inside of Palestine or the state of Israel within the next few weeks. This sacrifice would essentially give them leverage to build a temple. And I did a whole teaching, by the way, that this temple is there's no prophecy in scripture that says that there's going to be a temple that's going to be Yah's temple in the end. The temple that they're building is not to Yah. This temple that they're building is to a false deity. So that's another thing that should be understood. They're going to be building a temple to a false deity. They're doing an animal sacrifice to it as well. And all of this so that they can usher in their Messiah. The timing, don't take the timing as a coincidence. Right now, Israel is literally on the brink of a total rebellion inside of the world amongst the lay people. Still not the elite, obviously, but many people have had enough of seeing the horrible killings of Palestinians. At the same time, we're seeing that they are full scale ahead with finishing what their agenda was to begin with, what seems to be retaking or taking for the first time in my estimation, taking the Gaza Strip for the state of Israel. If you remember the show that I did about Benjamin Netanyahu's Messiah prophecy, what was said about Benjamin Netanyahu? That he would be the prime minister of Israel to usher in the Jewish Messiah. That is what this entire war is about inside of Gaza. It's not about what happened on October 7th. If you've studied the facts or whatnot, you should know that October 7th doesn't make any logical sense or estimation. I'm not going to make that argument on here, but it doesn't make logical sense how the whole thing happened. So what's happening right now is really, truly about retaking all of the land of Israel, because what did I say in that previous video where I spoke about the Jewish Rebbe, that they said that the Rebbe said there could not be 1 inch of territory that was lost in order for them to usher in their Messiah, meaning the borders that they have drawn of what they want Israel to be have to be taken by the state of Israel to usher in their Messiah. And if you want that full teaching, by the way, you can watch it right here. And also if you want to watch a teaching on the fact that the 3rd temple is not going to have to be built inside of scripture, you can watch that right here. The bottom line is, though, that this is an end time agenda. So don't allow these people to manipulate you into thinking that it's not. This is about bringing about their Messiah. And we can say it's the Antichrist. There's been many Antichrists. I have kind of a new thinking on how the actual Antichrist manifests, but definitely a figure who could be a false prophet or Antichrist will come out from this event. That I am very sure and confident of. no one knows 100%, but I would absolutely believe and think, just based on the way that these people have been moving for a long time, that is really what's going to be the event that really launches us into an entirely new world system. So that is what I have for this story. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Have you heard about the red heifers? Do you believe that this is going to be the catalyst of the final end time setting that many of us have read about or thought about or contemplated, especially inside this crazy world that we live in? Love to hear your thoughts. Yah willing, I'll see you on the next video.
Africa gave monotheism to the world, belief in one God. And at the time that Africa gave monotheism to the world, belief in one God, every other area surrounding Africa were believing in cows, were believing in moons, were believing in the sun. It was Africa and Africa alone that gave monotheism to the world. That is why Judaism had to be born in Africa. It presented the proper conditions for Judaism to be born there. Sigmund Freud, in his book Moses and Monotheism, his last book, and the book usually hidden, it's hard to get, and I don't see why. I find the book to be a particularly interesting book, and the conditions under which it were written. Mr. Freud began to write the book, I believe, in Austria, and because of Nazi occupation, he had to leave, and he took all the notes with him and went to Britain and hurried very much to write the book. Of course, this book, the Moses and Monotheism, here Freud comes to show through archaeological proofs, Freud comes to show through historical proof, Freud comes to through psychoanalytical proof that Judaism began in Africa, and not only this, but Moses himself was an African. Of course, the early priests of the religion were Africans, as they had to be. They were the ones who recorded the religion. Thus, when I take a position against Zionism, for example, when I hear people tell me that I'm anti-Semitic, which makes no sense at all because Judaism has nothing to do with Semitic people. One is a religion, the other is a biological specification, and the Palestinians certainly are Semitic. Mr. Arafat is a Semite. So if I support the Palestinians, I cannot be anti-Semitic, that's clear. But this is all confusion here. And this confusion is well done to keep people more confused. But we're revolutionaries and we believe in dialectics. Out of confusion comes clarity. Thus, because our time is limited and we want a lot of time for question, we want to make it clear. Judaism was given to the world by Africa. This is clear and undeniable fact. Those who wish to look at the history and we can develop it, look. Zionism is a political philosophy. It did not come out of Africa. The first organizational conference of Zionism, if my memory serves me correctly, was in 1897 in a place called Bâle, Switzerland. B-A-L-S-E. The reason why this meeting had to be held in Bâle, Switzerland was because the majority of Orthodox Jewry in Europe was against Zionism, totally against it. We must look properly at Zionism, its beginning, and its founder, a man by the name of Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. Mr. Herzl was, of course, bourgeois from his toes to the top of his head. He was bourgeois. As bourgeois as you can get. He didn't think about the proletarian. As a matter of fact, Mr. Herzl himself was not a religious person. It's extremely important. And we want to read his diary. He himself says that he's an atheist. You must understand the word properly. An atheist does not just not believe in God. An atheist makes the affirmative statement that God does not exist. Thus, Mr. Herzl is an atheist. I could never understand, until this day it is incomprehensible for me to understand. How is it that Zionism, a political philosophy, born thousands of miles away from Judaism, one born in Africa, the other in Europe, born thousands of years different from Africa, thousands of years of difference, Judaism thousands of years ago, Zionism 1897, and how is it that they can link each other together? And according to the philosophy of Zionism, that they feel that somehow that they have some relationship to Judaism, and this promised state that God promised his chosen people. Mr. Herzl did not believe in God. Not only did not believe in God, he said that God did not exist. Now, he who tells me that God does not exist sets out to find a place that God promised to his chosen people. If this is not ludicrous, and this is the basis, of course, of Zionism, so you can see here the contradictions just everywhere. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case, quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it and attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it. Clearly here. Yes. The legal foundation of the State of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British. Just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. The Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string in hand to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus they can hardly be a liberation movement.